Former Congressman John Hostetler on the new border rules under Title VIII. Stay tuned. Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for watching The Hot Zone. I got a chance to sit down with former Congressman John Hostetler. He's now working for a think tank here in Texas, and he can give you kind of the straight scoop on what's going on with the new rules and why they're kind of ridiculous. Listen to this.
Okay. So let's talk about what's happening here with Title 42. Could you just provide a little background on that for somebody that, like my daughter who doesn't follow it, she doesn't have any idea what it is. If you're explaining it to a 10th grader, how do you do that?
Well, when the COVID national emergency was announced in 2020, one of the items that was used with regard to foreigners coming into the United States was Title 42. So we hear a lot about Title 42. It's not actually an immigration policy, it is a public health policy. And due to the fact that that there was an international COVID situation, the Trump administration, President Trump, decided to implement that part of federal statute that permits the United States government to send back individuals that would otherwise possibly come into the United States.
How does it differ from Remain in Mexico policy, or was it just the one and the same?
So Title 42 allows for immediate expulsion of individuals. Remain in Mexico was specifically for individuals who were seeking asylum in the United States. And asylum is that process where an individual steps foot on U.S. soil, and they can ask for sanctuary, they can ask for asylum in the United States. If you're overseas, if you're outside of the United States and you want to become a refugee, then you ask for a refugee status. If you're in the United States and wish to become a refugee, then you ask for asylum. And the difference is that with regard to refugees, there are statutory caps. In law, there are caps to the number of individuals who can be given refugee status in a year's time. There are no caps for asylum. And so once you step foot on U.S. soil, and hence the problem is that the migrant industry, you might say, and migrants themselves have learned that if they step foot on U.S. soil, they can actually not try to get away from a Border Patrol officer, but approach Border Patrol officers and give themselves up to claim asylum and start a process of an asylum process.
Now, the vast majority of these people do not qualify for asylum in any way, shape, or form.
Almost 90% are rejected.
But that's not any kind of deterrent for some reason.
It's not a deterrent because right now well, first of all, the numbers that are coming are large numbers. There is about a 2 million case backlog for the immigration courts. So there are 2 million individuals who have a case before an immigration judge. They're not all asylum, but asylum cases are going to be considered by that immigration judge. So if you've got 2 million cases, it may be a couple years before your court date comes up, and the sticking point with that is the individuals come into the United States, they pass what's called a credible fear interview, whereby an individual, someone in the government, an interviewer will say they have a credible fear of potential persecution if they are immediately returned to their country. Then the next step is a notice to appear before an immigration judge, and they are given that notice to appear, and they are released into the interior. Well, the numbers vary depending on the various research and studies, but it's about 1 out of 2 of these individuals. 1 out of 2 individuals that are given notices to appear never show up for their court date in the first place. Then you have the situation whereby if the individual is here for 150 days, then they also qualify for work authorization, which in many cases, and there have been lots of interviews and research that has shown that the vast majority of the people that come here and claim asylum are here for economic reasons, actually. And so that's what they get they get the prize, if you will, after 150 days, and then that even motivates them more so not to show up for their court date.
So in this case, with the ending of Title 42, and if you listen to what the State Department is saying, if you listen to what Alejandro Mayorkas is saying, they seem to be trying very hard to convince migrants that this is not the time to come. The border is closed. You cannot get in. And yet the migrants are hearing exactly the opposite. When I go to Mexico, or when I go to Colombia, or I go to Panama, and I talk to these migrants, they are saying exactly the opposite. This is my time to come, and we are coming simply because Joe Biden has opened the door. Why the disconnect?
Well, there's a disconnect that could be motivated by all types of desires on the part of the Biden administration to allow more people in here, the Biden administration's constituency to force the administration to allow more people in here. The simple fact of the matter is, and you hit the nail on the head, the migrants believe the border is open, and they are coming. And as a result of their coming, they are overwhelming Border Patrol agents. And so Border Patrol agents now are not securing the border. Almost all of them will tell you, if they're not political appointees, that they're basically processing migrants to come into the United States. They're processing them, they're saving them, they're feeding them, they're transporting them from the border to the Border Patrol sector offices. Whatever it is, they're not securing the border. The border is not secure, and we know that, for example, that last year there were over a million gotaways in the fiscal year. A million gotaways. Those are individuals that we know got away. We didn't encounter them. We didn't catch them, but we saw them. But we saw them by various means of gathering intelligence. Right. So a million. So we don't know why they're here. We don't know who they are. Those are the gotaways. And then you have the situation that we are encountering. We are encountering individuals who are on the terrorist watch lists. And so those are the ones we do encounter. Now, once again, you got a million people that we don't know. And they're likely individuals on the terrorist watch list there too.
Right.
So that's what's happening. There is a tremendous disconnect, and that's why you're seeing, I believe, the rhetoric kind of elevate itself, especially in the Senate, with Secretary Mayorkas coming before the senators, and just simply, Secretary Mayorkas is just saying things that they're not consistent with the reality on the ground.
Demonstrably untrue.
Yes.
There's no possible way that he could not just be, that he doesn't know that he's saying absolutely untrue things.
Yeah, yes.
It's unbelievable. It sit there and sort of smugly declare that the border is under control.
Yeah.
It's like, and he's been here, he knows. Okay, so just a second. I just wanted to check and make sure. Okay. What will happen when Title 42 expires? Like there's all these people who are making their way through the pipeline on their way north. The State Department is saying if you come in irregular means without a appointment through the CBP-1 app, you're going to be immediately sent back. Is that actually going to work?
Well, that's kind of the idea that if an individual does not use the CBP-1 app, does not request a scheduled entrance at a port of entry, excuse me, then they will be turned away. We know right now that the CBP-1 app has been overwhelmed. They're not using it. It is not being used, and they're still coming in. And once again, I think this is window dressing. This is the administration saying we're putting all these things in place, but Border Patrol doesn't believe they're going to work. Texas Department of Public Safety does not believe they're going to work. So this is going to continue because with Title 42 going away, then there is not going to be that authority to immediately expel individuals. And so there's the likelihood that individuals who would have been expelled under Title 42 will find a way to get into the interior.
Yeah, and if they just simply overwhelm the system like
Yes.
that, there's just no way.
Well, and they are, because just today there's news that individuals are going to be allowed into the interior without being processed, but they'll be given basically a notice to report to an ICE office. So we talked earlier about the notice to appear before an immigration judge. Well, that is a trial date that is established in the processing at the border, and the date is for certain in front of an immigration judge. This is another step that probably won't be taken by a lot of migrants. They'll say, okay, first you'll go to an ICE office, an Immigration Customs Enforcement office, and then you'll get your notice to appear. Well, this is just putting in another step, but they're basically getting waived through the border here.
Yeah, I think that, when you actually listen to the rhetoric that Alejandro Mayorkas uses, he's very clear on what they're doing. He's very clear that we are establishing safe and legal pathways. When you establish a pathway, the pathway is intended to be used.
Yes.
And it is being used.
Yes.
We're facilitating safer, easier migration, so people don't have to go through the cartels. That doesn't sound like we're making it harder to get here.
Right. Well,
fewer people.
Everybody is going through the cartels. What the U.S. government can do and is doing is it is providing for a easier way to get into the interior once you step onto U.S. soil. So the cartels still control everything south of the border, and we've been told by numerous people, nobody comes into the United States between the ports of entry that hasn't paid someone in Mexico. All of these individuals are paying smugglers who then pay cartels to come into the country. If they don't have the sufficient amount of money when they get here, then they just come into the United States and they become indentured servants for the cartels. And so we heard reports today about the amount of money, the fact that everybody is basically outgunned. Even Border Patrol is outgunned. DPS is outgunned. You have the various other states, California, New Mexico, Arizona. They're outgunned, and I use that somewhat loosely, but because they have so much money. They have so much, and the reason they have so much money is because now human smuggling. Now we're not talking about human trafficking.
We're talking about the cartels have so much money.
They have so much money because of human smuggling. Now there is more money made by the cartels from human smuggling across the border than there is by drug trafficking across the border.
So they're not going to give this up easily.
They're not going to, not at all, not at all. They're not going to give up and it's just going to continue to widen. We're hearing of the cartels making their way into the various stages of the migrants coming across the border in new ways that 3 months ago no one had ever heard of. But these are, it sounds terrible, these are businessmen. This is a business to them. They're finding all kinds of very creative ways to make money on the migrants as they come into come to the border, and then as they cross the border. Once again, if the entire debt isn't paid, then they'll owe when they get here and work.
Wow. You just came from the border security conference here in El Paso. What's that all about? And is it theater, or is it actually people actually trying to find ways to make the border?
Well, the Border Security Expo is an opportunity for companies in the business of providing, especially technology, to Department of Homeland Security for securing the border. So there's all kinds of technology, everything from firearms to drone technology to, we saw a robot dog. Wow. On display there. So so everything that can be used in the process of securing the border from vendors that are serving the Department of Homeland Security's mission at the border were there, and we got to hear from folks in Border Patrol, including Border Patrol Chief Ortiz and others, speak on the situation at the border.
How do you feel like Border Patrol, what do you feel like their morale is right now?
Well, it's our understanding that the morale is very low. One thing we heard today that we've heard over and over again, when individuals sign up to secure the border, it is a patriotic mission on their part. Every one of them wants to secure the United States from any threats from around the world. And Border Patrol is part of that. That's their mission, is to secure the border, to make that border a reality, in a practical reality. That we take citizenship and residence in the United States very close to heart. And they do too, obviously more so than any of us, because they're the ones on the front lines securing the border.
Yeah.
So, and what they're doing now is they're processing. They're processing, they're feeding, they're doing all they can for this so-called humanitarian mission at the border. And there's nothing in statute that says Border Patrol has a humanitarian mission. Their mission is to secure the border. They're not able to do that. You can just imagine being someone who is putting their life on the line, who made the decision to come and work for Border Patrol to secure the United States, especially post 9/11. We're going to secure the United States, and now they're not on the border.
Right. Yeah, they're the welcome wagon. No,
Yes.
Yeah, it's too bad. Okay, well, thank you very much, John.
Sure.
I appreciate it.